chapter exchange. And basically, it's an opportunity to interact with other chapters across the country to get new ideas and hopefully solve some of your existing problems that you might be faced with. Today is the first part of ICE, so we have special topics presenters. If you haven't already, I'm going to link into the chat a playlist of YouTube videos that that all the different presenting chapters have made that talk about our special topic for this year. And our special topic is really a general topic, which is simply how do you survive the pandemic, right? And how do you thrive in the pandemic? So all of our presenters are going to be talking about what they found works, ideas that they have, lessons they've learned, things like that. I'll have each of them introduce themselves. Let's start with Annie.
Hi, my name is Annie Brenton. Was last year's president of Arizona Alpha at the University of Arizona. I'm currently in grad school, not a Tau Beta Pi officer currently, but I can share what I did kind of converting all of our activities last semester. And just a little bit about the Arizona Alpha chapter. We have about 75 members, so a medium to large chapter. Our main activities are general meetings every other week, and then we also do social events and volunteer events, as well as tutoring for underclassmen in the College of Engineering. Yeah, I look forward to answering your questions.
How about Sean next?
Hi, everyone. I'm Sean. I am the president of NC Alpha, which is at NC State in Raleigh, North Carolina. I'm a junior in aerospace engineering. And a little bit about NC Alpha is that we have 44 active members, and we're looking to induct about 40 new inductees. We host general body meetings, service events, social events, and we'll also do tutoring, much like Arizona Alpha.
How about Nick next? I think
You're mute. Your mic's not working.
Okay, we'll give you a second to work on that. In the meantime, how about Kavya? And then we'll come back to you.
Hi everyone, my name is Kavya Tucker. I was the president of San Diego State University, California Xi last semester. I'm a bioengineering grad student, and so I'm helping out still, but like not actively part of the officer group, kind of like Annie. And our chapter is fairly large. We have about 210 candidates eligible every semester, about 125 members on campus, and our average initiation class is anywhere between 35 and 40 people every semester. And we host a lot of events because we have a pretty large officer group and large member base. And so we do about 30 events on a like non-COVID day, and about 60 is what we bumped it up to in terms of online stuff. So yeah, little spiel.
Nick, I think you fixed it. Oh no, not yet. I'm sorry. Okay, we'll go to Kellen and then we'll come back.
Hey everyone, my name is Kellen, as you can see, and I am the successor to Kavya, who is hopefully next to me on your screens, who is a wonderful person. I'm the current president of California Xi at SDSU, and she already gave you a little stats about our chapter, but one of the things that we've been doing really well is the transition. That's why Kavya and I have worked together so closely, and that's why her wisdom has kind of been, I've been right in her heels, as to say. So it's really important to kind of pay attention to those who do a really good job so that you could kind of follow in their footsteps. And I am an aerospace engineer major. I'm in my 4th year, but we'll see. I probably have another one. And yeah, good to be here.
Cool. All right, Nick, let's see. Oh no.
How about now?
Okay, there we go.
Hear me? Yes. Let's go. All right. Hi, everyone. Sorry about that delay. So my name is Nick Schuffelbein. I'm a mechanical engineering student at Iowa State University, and I am the chapter president of Iowa Alpha. We are actually one of the larger chapters in the nation. We have probably about 350 or so members, And this year we're looking to initiate about 65 more of them. So some of the things we do around campus, we love service projects. Just this past week, we were able to help out some different parks, doing some cleanup work. This coming weekend, we have another event where we're doing a 5K for charity for COVID especially. And yeah, so we're just very involved on the campus. We're a very large chapter. We're definitely having some great growth. So hopefully if you guys are running into any issues as far as membership goes, I'll be able to answer some of those questions.
Awesome. So like Neil just mentioned in the Zoom chat, we will be taking questions from the audience, and there's 3 ways you can do it that I'll be able to get you, and we'll hopefully get your question answered. So I'm looking at the Whova chat, the Zoom chat, and also within Zoom, if you use the raise hand function, we can allow your audio to turn on so that you can unmute yourself and then ask a question of the panelists. I have a few pre-selected questions that I'll at least start off with. So, if you need time to think of your question and how to word it, feel free. And then in a few, I'll go ahead and open it up to if we have any questions from the audience. So let's start off with probably one of the biggest topics that I think there can be, which is image on campus, and particularly how it relates to membership recruitment, right? So, now that we can't exactly post posters all over campus, can't do events on campus that necessarily like bring up our image, what kind of ways have you found, like what new ideas have you been able to implement that have helped build image on your campus? And whoever wants to start that can go first.
I can go ahead and start us off if you guys would like. So yeah, like I mentioned, we're one of the larger chapters in the nation, and a lot of that I think is attributed to really our presence on campus. And you're right. So this semester, it's been very challenging to try to overcome that, especially since you're not able to go out and really do tabling, for instance. I don't know if you guys do tabling on any of your campuses, but essentially what that is you stand in front of a high traffic area, like for us, it's a library, and then you maybe hand out flyers or something letting people know about your chapter. So that's something that was pretty inhibited for us this year. So instead, it's mostly been a word of mouth type thing. So we really try to get involved on social media, number one. We found that that's been very effective for us. So for instance, Instagram's a big presence that we have. And we try to do different posts throughout the week to really raise awareness. So we started something called the Meme of the Week, which is where people will insert different memes, and then it's pretty much a competition. Whoever has the best one selected by us will then get featured on our channel. So that's been a very great way for us to especially gain exposure, since everyone loves a good laugh about engineers, because there's a lot of content there, if you know what I mean. So yeah, that's for us, that's been one thing that's been very effective.
I think the biggest way that we've done is that this semester we introduced tutoring to freshman engineers through like living learning villages here on campus. That's kind of trying to build our exposure to freshmen as they start their experience as engineers, and trying to just know that, so they know what Tau Beta Pi is when they do get the invitation. And on top of that, we also definitely still try to get into videos. We made videos for all our virtual club fairs. Like Nick was saying, we don't get to go out and have tables during like club fairs or any of our engineering club fairs. So a lot of it has been coming down to making videos and trying to get those into the virtual stuff so that we still have a name out there, so people still recognize it when they get that invitation.
Recruitment is one of the tricky things, even in person. So for online, we definitely had to kind of think outside the box. But one of the things that we did in person were class talks. So we get a list of all the engineering classes and then kind of cross-reference which ones did the most majors have to take. So the most common classes for all engineers. And then we would send officers, would sign up for a certain time, go to the class, arrive early, speak to the professor, and say, can I give a really brief talk to your class, and kind of hype up Tau Beta Pi. Now that we don't have classes on campus, we still reach out to professors, or we did, and said, could we please have your Zoom room meeting link? We'd show up early, and then we'd give a class talk presentation, and that worked pretty well. But a lot of professors wouldn't reply, or they just would kind of be too busy to kind of let you do the class talk. So we ended up making a video, and it was a pretty short one. It was about 3 minutes, if I remember. And it had a lot of humor in it and a lot of good stuff, but it was basically just kind of a sales pitch, if you will, with also some factual information. It was kind of like, here's Tau Beta Pi, here's why we're fun, and here's what you can get out of it. Besides that, to recruit, we also do a barbecue that's all engineering wide. So it's not just Tau Beta Pi specific, but if you're an engineer major, we invite everybody basically in the college to an engineering barbecue. And we do a couple little things here and there, but those are the two biggest ones in our chapter.
Just to bounce off of Kellen, we also do envelope stuffing. That's that's a big thing for us. We send letters to all of our eligible candidates, and so they will get a stuffed letter that has a dean's letter, because our dean is also a member. And I highly recommend, to those of you who haven't done it already, try to initiate your dean as a eminent engineer. It's a very good thing to do. Please do so if you can. But we do that. We get a dean's letter from our dean telling them to join. The president for that year writes a letter encouraging candidates to come to our info sessions, and then we talk to them about Tau Beta Pi and what the requirements are and stuff there. So that's another one of the big things. And then we do cold calls. Our school provides us with a list of phone numbers for every student that's eligible as part of our eligibility list. And obviously that it might not be the case everywhere, but that's one thing that we do to get people out to the barbecue, in addition to emails for eligibility and whatnot.
And then I'll end with it. A lot of what we do has already been covered by all the other panelists, but to build off the social media, I will say it helps not just having your own social media, but if you can get on like your College of Engineering social media and be featured for a post, that's helpful. I would also highly recommend the envelopes like Kavya was talking about. It really lets you stand out amongst other engineering societies, or just other societies in general. Like, and especially in like the virtual times we're in, I think getting a paper something will mean a lot more now. And then like Sean, we also do the tutoring for underclassmen. I would highly recommend that. And just partnering with other organizations in general is also a good way to get your name out there. So if there are other like engineering societies like SWE or SHIP, like keeping tabs on what they're doing, and if you want to partner with them, and it helps both your organizations get your names out and just organize things easier.
Excellent, thank you all. So let's move from image into membership. And obviously a lot of changes have to be made for the initiation process to proceed. I'm sure you all had a lot of chapter traditions that went back for a long time that had to be modified in order to allow your initiation process to take place 100% online. Do any of you have any particularly good examples of something that you changed that was very successful, maybe even unexpectedly so, from your initiation process this year?
I think the biggest one that we implemented at the end of last year when everything switched initially was the switching of bent shining in person to bent shining, as in we asked our initiates to come up with like creative ways of creating shapes of bents. I've heard other chapters do this, and it's kind of like finding creative ways to make the shape of a bent in the spirit of Tau Beta Pi. So we had members create a SolidWorks rendering of the bent. We had people who used run tracking, and they took a map picture and it was a shape of a bent. Things like that was a fun way to, because it was hard initially to try and get people their bents and get them to shine, and shining on a Zoom call is not entirely entertaining. So like this just kind of created a fun spin on it and made it a lot easier. So everyone still had that experience of trying to do something related to our symbol, but also made it fun.
I mean, I can go. So one thing, and Kellen, feel free to add, since I know you're definitely knee deep in this, but we've actually added something called mixers, like chapter mixers, and something that we call coffee hours. So mixers are actually our version of, it helps us. One thing we noticed is that constant communication online is weird, and just getting to know candidates is really hard. And that makes our initiation process difficult because when it comes to candidate elections, you're not really sure if you know them well enough to make that decision. And so this is our way of getting to know our candidates. So we have them come to a mixer and they get to meet with other members, officers, other candidates. So it helps build that little bit of camaraderie. And one thing that we added to the mixers that was a brainchild of Kellen was we started doing a speed dating. So we basically put candidates and members one-on-one randomly in breakout rooms on Zoom, and then we would give them a minute and 30 seconds to chat and get to know one another, and then we'd switch them. And so it was a fun, we added games and made it exciting. And then coffee hours were us giving a designated time for candidates and members to talk for 10-ish minutes. They could hop around and talk to different people. And this gave us the opportunity to get to know them a little bit better and know what they like, what their interests are, that sort of thing. But in a more casual form that's not necessarily an interview. So that was definitely something that we changed for our initiation process as a requirement that we've seen significant help from.
Let's see, Annie or Nick, did you have anything that you wanted to add on that?
I could throw in a little bit, yeah. That's a really fun idea. I really like that. So from our chapter's perspective, based off of what we did in the past in person, not a ton had to change. So to speak a little bit more to that, so we usually do what's called initiate small groups. So what those are is when we have one of our current members, we usually have about, say, 10 small groups, and we have about 10 to 20 small group leaders, and then there's about 1 to 2 per small group. And then what this allows is that since we have a fairly large number of members, and this can be scaled to however many you're having, but pretty much what this allows is for these already initiated members to then get to know the initiates on our behalf. So then we pretty much can establish that trust, and people can get to know one another on a much more personal basis that way. We found that to be extremely successful, and these small groups will commit some type of service for the organization. For instance, one of ours just this past week, really, they coordinated a service small group, or a service project, which I had mentioned that we did this past weekend, going and cleaning up a park. We have some other ones making a LinkedIn page for the chapter, anything that's really of service for the organization. So we found that, again, this is a very effective way to get to know people, especially so we can feel confident in electing them towards the end of the semester.
I'll cover a few points about our election process and then also the initiation in general, the ceremony. So for our election process, we assess character through letters of recommendation from professors. So this is a really easy thing to make online if you're struggling with organizing events and stuff. So they just need a simple form from the professor to turn in. And then we also to make people get to know each other, we had a signature sheet where they would have to get signatures from other people. I think this could be improved still, but we changed it to making people connect on LinkedIn. So then it's both kind of getting to know people and also building their professional network and doing professional activities like that. And then for the ceremony, I think we really thought about trying to preserve the special aura around the ceremony because it's just a very unique process. And so, I mean, I think everyone should sort of tailor it to how you want to do it, but just spending the time to think about what that should look like for your chapter on a Zoom meeting is important. If you want to know more about what we did, you can watch the video that I made. I'm not going to go into it, but just I think really thinking about how to make that a special moment for people is important.
Awesome. And once again, I'm going to link that playlist in the chat. And we'll start taking questions from the chat. So I'm looking at both the Whova chat and the Zoom chat. And again, if you want to ask your question verbally, just use the raise hand function and we'll click on you and make it so that you're able to ask your question to the panelists. But until those come in, we'll keep going. So we've covered image and the initiation process. I want to talk a little bit more about the membership side of things. So what have you done in terms of making sure that your members are still motivated to attend your events and that it is easy for them to attend events?
I can take this one, unless Nick, you want to go first.
You beat me to it, so it's all yours.
Okay. So one thing, like I mentioned in the beginning, one thing that we changed was we made our chapter did lots of events to begin with, but we tried to make that even like add even more events so people could go to them. One thing we noticed was that the more opportunities you make available to your members, the more likely that they're going to be able to come to something. You don't want to, always have an event on Thursday night at 9 o'clock because like everybody, like somebody might have like something going on, or Thursday at 5 people have classes, like stuff like that. So what we did was we would try to make sure that we have our schedule planned out at the beginning of the semester, where we put on our calendar, we do calendar planning, and we plan out all the events for that semester and put them up on a calendar. And that helps people see far enough advance what works for them and what doesn't. And moving that process of doing that online is still something that we're working on, and we could use some help with. So if you guys have any ideas that could help us with our calendar planning, we'd love to hear that. And I talk about that in our video, but we definitely thought that the more opportunities you provide, the easier it is for people to come to things, and it makes it more fun. And so we've like categorized things into games, socials, and like lecture type events so that people can sort of like pick their own adventure and kind of make their way through it. So the more fun that you make it, it always helps. And that's definitely something that we've found is successful in trying to get people to come.
Yeah, I want to echo that. So I think that establishing that schedule right at the beginning of the semester is really crucial. So people have that. And that's something that we do at Iowa Alpha as well. So yes, highly recommend doing that. Also, as far as membership engagement, this is something that we've done in the past. This semester with COVID, we cut it because there just weren't quite as many events to incentivize people to go to. But what we did was have a membership point system. So what this meant is that if you attended like a journal meeting, for instance, maybe that'd be 5 points. Volunteer hours, that could be a point here or there. However you want to have the overall rankings is kind of up to you. But pretty much what it then allowed is that as soon as people attended more events, then they could get more points, so they could then allocate towards some type of prize. Maybe it'd be apparel, coffee mugs, something like that, you name it. So that's one thing that we've done, and as soon as COVID and all the online stuff is subsided, then we hope to get back to that. We may try to implement more online activities going forward, but that's to be determined. But I want to talk a little bit quickly about our online process as far as getting people engaged online, especially. So what we adopted as a chapter was Microsoft Teams to conduct all of our business. We found that having a collaborative platform and just everything all in one spot has been highly effective. So we have general meetings conducted through Teams bi-weekly. We have all of our schedules, files, signups, all done right in that location. So then people don't get overwhelmed with trying to go to like sort through emails or other posts, and it's been very effective. One thing I will say as far as announcements go, getting the word out for people, is that if you are posting constant announcement after another, people get overwhelmed, they'll get inundated, and they ultimately will just ignore it. So like how many times, for instance, have we been in those group chats constantly just flooded with messages and we just hit the mute button, and then just like that, you're probably never going to see that person again. So we want to avoid that. So to get around that, maybe we'd have a post in Microsoft Teams once a week. But then if you want to get more words out, you can use different modes of communication. So then, for instance, we will post on our Instagram page, and then maybe that's only about once a week too, but then you can get 2 different messages out to people in 2 different platforms, and they won't get overwhelmed all in just one spot. And we've seen that's been highly effective. So definitely recommend, if you're going to be communicating with people, try using different platforms instead of overwhelming people with just one.
And I'll definitely second that. We in this year introduced, since we're on a large platform, we decided to switch to Slack, which is not necessarily like Microsoft Teams, but definitely the same concept of what our thinking was similar. you don't want to inundate people with emails. All of my classes send out emails every week telling you the weekly homework, and just another email will get lost eventually. My teachers just say go into the void, and so that's definitely true. We try and keep the main stuff in the emails, but most of the fun stuff comes in Slack, and I think that's part of what keeps our membership engaged, is trying to create that atmosphere that is kind of like away from school. I mean, there's a school aspect is in that we're all engineers, but you definitely want to try and find a new way to engage membership. Now we still require like to be an active member to show up to at least one general body meeting or as many general bodies as you can. We do stagger them on different nights. We do the first one on Thursday, then the next one on Wednesday, then on Tuesday. So no matter what, you can show up to at least one general body meeting. And that kind of is what also keeps it up. We try and bring speakers in every week so that at least if there's some boring business we have to do, that at least there's something you can learn out of the end of the night. And so that's kind of been what we've been trying to do to keep membership engaged and coming to our general body meetings. I like to think that everyone loves coming to social events. Now I know people are busy. We do it on kind of a sporadic weeknight, so it's definitely not going to always work for everyone's schedule, but just always keep it fun. Like that's what keeps people here. Like we're all done with school. Keeping people fun and happy is what will keep people coming back.
And I guess I can third that point about multiple lines of communication and not overloading any one of them. A new one, in case you're getting dry from Teams or GroupMe, would be Discord, which we just implemented this semester. And I know that a couple other chapters had a pretty active one, and you can have multiple channels for officers, for members, for exec, if you have different committees. And then one thing I wanted to kind of piggyback off of with Kavya was we have among our committees, one is member recruitment and retention, and it focuses basically just on ensuring the candidate experience is high, and then also just making sure that we can kind of keep people active. And some of the ways we do that, like you were saying, Sean, is like we have requirements for active membership, like a certain number of events for officers. And then if you'd like stoles and cords for graduation as a tailgate, then you would need to be an active member, further kind of increasing their motivation to be a part of it. So yeah.
Okay, let's see. Actually, Ian, can you allow Rachel Alexander to ask her question?
Hello. Thank you, everyone. I just wanted to ask, out of all of your events that you're doing and like the different type of events that you're doing, what is your favorite event that you've done? I know I kind of put you on the spot. Sorry.
I think so far this kind of a combination of both semesters, but so far, like in all the chaos, we had a fun trivia night the other week. I think trivia is definitely a big one amongst easy to do things. One of our members had Trivia Pursuit, and we kind of made this fun Excel spreadsheet, kind of allowed us to randomize what color you got. So you beat different teams in different categories. It was really fun because it also let people come in late and they could still join in on the fun. There's no real prerequisite to being there. I think that one's been the most fun. I got very frustrated because I had some very bad questions, but it was definitely, I think we had one of our great turnout and people seem to have fun.
I guess, and Kellen, feel free to add yours because I feel like it will be different from mine. But we recently did an Among Us game night, so that was always fun. We had lots of fun with that. Lots of people showed up, especially because it's new and in at the moment. But definitely had fun with that one. It's one of our better events. And back when we were in person, one of our hits was always Glow in the Dark Capture the Flag. When we played that on campus. So that was another favorite from back in the day when things were in person.
Yeah, I'm a gamer and I like to play games. I don't like to take things too seriously. So I would have said Jackbox game night. We do Jackbox games, which if you don't know what they are, you kind of order, it's not free, but once you have it forever. So you can get it as a chapter. You order like a set of Jackbox games, and then you can play trivia or kind of fill in the blank question games. I loved Among Us, but I have to say, not less selfishly, I think our best events were those that were a series of breakouts. I think that's where we've been most successful. When we've had big events and too much to have everybody in the exact same room, we've kind of developed a series of random breakouts so that everyone's getting switched up, but every different breakout's a game. And so I thought that was really successful, even if it wasn't my personal favorite, just because of all the stress of like, I got to break everyone out. But those tended to be the most successful events, I thought. And I love them.
How about Annie or Nick?
Yeah, I can chime in here. So let's see, for us, we're just actually having our first social type of event, like a game night tomorrow night. So that's to be determined. I know we're going to be playing Jackbox, like you brought up, Kellen. So we're looking forward to that. As far as some of my favorite events goes that we've done, I'll speak first generally overall before COVID and everything, because eventually we're going to get back to some type of normalcy. That was the Office Olympics. So what we did, we had a classroom, and then we had about 3 different events, and the winner took home some insomnia cookies. So we had things such as office chair curling, where we had some tape stuck to the ground, and whoever pushed someone in a chair closest to the target then would win. And then we had other just type of one-off events or little activities associated with that. Now, as far as this semester, we've been really focusing our attention towards professional development type of events, because essentially Tau Beta Pi is really big in that. So this past week, we had one of our, actually, according to my chief advisor, one of our most successful events he's ever been to. And it was just a financial professional came in and spoke to all of us about just investing in your future as soon as you graduate from college. So we found that that was a very responsive event, especially for engineering students, because you're probably not taking many business classes unless you're taking, I'm doing an MBA myself, but unless you're doing something like that, you're probably not getting exposed to many of those types of coursework. So yeah, that was greatly successful. So highly recommend anything like that where people can take those skills into the future with them.
So I'm gonna say, like, I haven't been involved in my chapter's stuff this semester, but based on last semester, honestly, I don't think we had any outstanding events, sadly. But we had a movie night, and honestly, I don't know that I would recommend that, because it's just people, like, you don't really want to talk and you're just sort of like watching the movie on your own. But maybe with more extroverted people, it would work better. But I think in general, our meetings have been really good, kind of on the line of what Nick was talking about. We have speakers at every meeting to try to give people food for thought or things that they aren't necessarily seeing in their classroom environment. So we also had someone talk about financial independence. Just finding, I think this is a little off topic, but now that we're online, you can get so many new speakers that you couldn't get before, because they don't have to be in person in your place. You just need to figure out how to get that connection. And I think that's really a big takeaway from where we're at right now, is that the possibilities have really been expanded for the kind of speakers you can get at events.
Thank you very much for the question, Rachel. Ian, if we can get Jim Hill in to ask his question. Jim, if you want to unmute yourself, and then you can ask your question. Are you there, Jim? Can you hear me, Jim?
Okay, I hear you.
Okay, can you ask your question now?
No, I didn't have a question. I was just listening in.
Oh, okay, sorry, you had your hand raised. Okay, sorry about that. Okay, so, I actually wanted to go off. Oh, sorry, we have a question from Jason.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jason, and I'm the president of the California CSUN Kappa chapter. I had a question about having seminars with companies. I do know that some chapters do have sponsors with companies and special boards for that. I was curious at of how you would communicate with a company or what resources you use?
I can answer that. So first of all, hi Jason. We're from the same district, so but one thing that our chapter does or has is we actually are very close with Northrop Grumman. We have multiple alumni from Tau Beta Pi who work there, and that's been our main method of like getting speakers from them and getting them to sponsor us or help us out in terms of professional development or anything like that. So I guess a good pipeline, if you can manage it, if your chapter has that kind of a resource, is stay connected with your alumni. When your current officers graduate, like make sure you stay in touch, and because you never know where they're going to end up and what resources they can bring back to you and give back to that community that they helped set up for you. So that's definitely like your graduating officers, your alumni are definitely a huge resource. If you have an alumni chapter in the area, if there's one near you, that's definitely a huge resource. They typically have people who are really willing to be speakers. Some people will actively go ask the companies they work at to help you out if you get lucky. So it doesn't hurt reaching out and asking what they can provide you. And definitely, like Annie mentioned, online, everybody's a ton more comfortable with like this whole Zoom thing now. Whereas 6 months ago, people would have been like, online, no thanks. So definitely reach out, and you never know what you're gonna get. So that's a big resource.
Yeah, I would definitely second all those points. Those are pretty much the main points I was going to talk about. The one we had our event speakers who were in industry, it was all through our local alumni chapter. I'd say that as an overarching theme, I think what makes Tau Beta Pi special is because a lot of the alumni of chapters are always staying active. I mean, that's what makes national conference so cool, is that you see most of our attendees are not necessarily collegiate chapters, but a lot of also adults who are more than willing to help us out. So definitely reaching out to not necessarily even your own personal university's alumni, but just reaching out in channels among Tau Beta Pi members and seeing if they're willing to reach out to contacts for you, or they can speak, or they know somebody. I think that's what makes Tau Beta Pi awesome. And that's definitely another channel if you're alumni or your faculty, or you don't have this sort of thing. I think that's a good step you can also take.
Does that answer your question, Jason? Does that give you what you need?
It does, thank you. And hi, Kavya. And yeah, for some reason, Northup seems to like our district a lot.
All right, thank you again for the question. All right, I wanted to bring up, so real quick, if you have more questions, feel free to, again, toss them in the chat or raise your hand, and then we will pull you in. But I wanted to touch on, Annie brought up that they did a movie night and it didn't really work out the way that they had hoped, and if it's done again, it should be done differently or not at all even, potentially. And I was going to ask for the other chapters, are there any specific events or things you've done since the pandemic hit that didn't quite go according to plan, and that should have been done differently, or anything like that? I'll start with maybe Sean, if you have one. Sorry to put you on the spot if you're not ready.
I mean, I can't really think of any ones yet, but I can tell you that it's definitely a fear, is always coming up with an event and putting all the work in and it not necessarily working. Especially with online modes of communication, it's definitely like a constant who's willing that night to show out. So I guess I'm yet to do it. Now, I don't have as many events showing up as possible, and a lot of what fill out our events are initiates, but it's just the only thing I can think of to prevent that, I guess, would be my line of thought, is kind of just trying to keep it different, trying to find patterns in what people like. I think Among Us is definitely a big one. Follow trends. A lot of people like to just follow the flow and keep relevant in any way. Among Us is a big thing. I do it in another club. We have Among Us nights every week. So game nights and trivia nights and things that are fun and engaging, I think, are the key parts to make sure it's something that doesn't necessarily people just sitting there doing stuff is not entirely the ideal way to go.
I'm gonna bounce off of you, Sean. So we actually, when I transitioned, because like, you know, I was president when COVID hit, and then I had 2 weeks to figure out what I was supposed to be doing on moving the chapter online. And one of the things we tried, and it sort of tanked, but I think we figured out a decent way of getting it back. We tried to do just chatting events. So these are like, oh, people are missing out on like conversations, you know, like people just want to sit and talk. So what we found was when we first started it, like we had a lot of people show up, but that was the problem. The problem was that we had 25 people in a Zoom meeting. That's a conversation killer. You're gonna get like everyone sitting with their mics turned off, their cameras off, and just listening. So one thing we've learned from that and from other like game nights that we had done was, in our case, we had to restrict attendance. We had to be like, no, we're only gonna have 10 people go to this event, and that way everyone can have a chance to talk and get to know one another. And as soon as we restricted that just chatting event to 10 people, it definitely helped. Like it helped, like people get the opportunity to talk. And one thing that we required was you have your camera on and you'd be participating, you know? And we would come with like prepped like questions and topics of conversation in case there was ever a lull. But that was definitely one of the big roadblocks we hit right off the bat. We're like, this is not going to work. We need a new way of doing this. So yeah, that was one way we sort of solved that problem.
Kellen, Nick, or Annie, do you have anyone?
I think it would be a pretty good sign that panelists struggle sometimes to come up with the ones that they didn't run so well. But just to kind of piggyback off of what Kavi and Sean said, engagement's the key. And so the whole point of reducing the event size was engagement. And like you're saying, keeping up with trends, engagement is the key. And so the more people want to be part of something, the more they're going to be engaged. And so that's basically all the unsuccessful events, if that's what we'll call them, have been with kind of less activity by candidates and members. And so the more you can get people talking and more that you can get people wanting to be there, I think that's where you're going to find you're successful.
Yeah, I would just echo everything you guys just said. From our perspective, there have been a ton of unsuccessful events. I think the main thing you really need to think about, like you guys had all mentioned, is really what are people looking for when they're joining Tau Beta Pi. For us, we took some surveys and we found that professional development was one of the main things people wanted. So social events was another thing. That was probably a close second for our chapter, but people really wanted something where they could, like, what do you go to college for? You go to college to get a job. So what we really take the onus of is doing everything in our power so people can attain their goal for college, which is to get a job. So we reach out to many speakers. One thing I will say with speakers is make sure you give people a lot of lead time if you're going to be scheduling an event. I'd say like 2 weeks at a minimum, you should be reaching out to people. Anything earlier than that can come off as kind of rude and inconsiderate of their time. So that's the only other thing I'd throw in there. Just make sure you're being considerate of time, scheduling wise with speakers, and then just make sure you're following the trends like everyone else had mentioned here, seeing what your members are really wanting to get out of their experience.
I guess what I'll add is just like if you're finding that your chapter doesn't seem to be having successful events, then just like keep trying, and like hopefully this session will give you a lot of ideas, and you'll be able to try new things, but just keep trying, because sometimes it's not that the members don't want to be engaged, it's just like maybe it wasn't communicated correctly, or maybe it was the wrong time. But just like continuing to keep trying, I think is really important. Like, don't give up.
I totally agree with Annie. And actually, one thing I noticed in the Discord, for those of you who have joined the convention Discord, unvention Discord, there's actually in the chapter chat, somebody posted a spreadsheet from after the first EC meeting when we did meet and greets. Some chapters have gone on that spreadsheet and thrown on some of their successful events. So if you're interested in like learning what other people have done besides the 5 of us that are here, definitely I looked at that. It's a huge resource, and you can add things if you have done awesome stuff, put that on there. So we're all helping each other out because we're a family, and that's how this goes.
Yeah, that's great to hear that there's that resource, and I also want to encourage for chapters to interact with each other, because with everything online, you know, one chapter could set up a speaker and a couple others could join in fairly easily. So it can become even easier to run events together. Ian, can you bring in Jason again? And Jason, do you have another question?
Yes, I do. I'm unsure if someone already asked this question, but I had a question about projects. I get at least 1 or 2 questions if Tau Beta Pi does projects from new initiates or current members. And considering that we have more than one type of engineering field for our organization, I was wondering how other clubs who have done projects coordinate that. One thought I had is Arduino. Most majors such as mechanical, electrical, or computer may use that.
So just to make sure I'm clear, so you're talking about like if you want your club to do like engineering type projects, and how do you make sure that you're incorporating all the different majors, basically? Is that right?
Yes.
Okay, good question. Do any of you have any tips on that?
Well, I know our group
Alan,
does
is
do.
Nest still a thing?
I believe so. If you want to cover that, you can.
Sorry.
Was it? Sorry about that. Kavya, if you want to go first, and then Annie, you can talk about Nest.
All right, so I know one thing that's definitely been something that we've been thinking about as our, at least when we were in person, it has, we haven't really transitioned that online, and we're looking for ways to potentially do that. But some of the things that we have done in the past were river water cleanups for like environmental and civil engineers. They would be really interested in that. So we would work with like the city and like try to, you know, come up with like community service options if that was open. We also on our campus have something called Zip Launchpad, and they're basically like a startup incubator, but they also do workshops of different kinds. So we've done Arduino workshops, we've done Excel workshops, Word and PowerPoint workshops, that sort of thing through them. And those were professional type projects that people could like, in the Arduino one, like people got to take home an Arduino if they came. But that was something that like off like, you know, Zip Launchpad would do. So partnering with like other resources on your campus is always a really big, easy way to do projects that help all sorts of different majors, because you never know what your college like council has like at their disposal. So definitely if you ask around, you might find something, or different clubs might have something that you can jump in on, which is always fun. So that's one thing I'd recommend.
Go ahead, Annie, if you wanted to.
Okay, sorry, my internet was having troubles before. So we started, I'm not sure about the status of this program, but it's called Tau Beta Pi Nest. And it's basically a program that Tau Beta Pi is trying to jumpstart within chapters. And the idea is that every year there will be a new topic. This year it was clean water, and the chapter has to organize a project around that topic to solve the issue of clean water. It's very open-ended. And it's a new program, so we just started doing it, but it's a really interdisciplinary project is the idea. So because it's open-ended, you can tackle it however you want to use your different engineers. Yeah, I would say look more into that program if you're interested. Like I said, I'm not sure what the status is. But as far as our general projects go, we usually just do volunteering that's not super engineering related so that anyone can become engaged in that. It's easier to organize with local partners.
I know it's kind of similar, Annie, but I wondered if you could like briefly touch on the like little things you do during meetings where you have a problem solving group. And I think that might be able to be done online.
Yeah, that's a good point, Alan. So we have something, so the way we structure meetings, we have like an intro activity and then announcements and then a speaker. So with our intro activity, we pose a problem. So I think one week it was like helping homeless people in your everyday life. And it was like ways you can put a package together for $20 or less to give to a homeless person to help them out, just like you see them on the street. And it's like 5 to 10 minutes brainstorming with the other people around you. So it's not quite a project, but it's a way to, I guess nowadays you could do that in a breakout room and then present the idea afterwards. So it's kind of project-like, but mini and not much work.
Did any of the other panelists have any suggestions or ideas? No? Thanks again for the question, Jason. That was really good.
That was helpful. And can I add on something to that question?
For sure.
So have any of you done projects that span more than one semester? So after the current people working on graduate, you get new people to work on it?
I'll direct that to Kavya. Have you?
We have not, but there was something that we were considering before COVID hit. It's actually it was a community thing. It was called Walk on Water. And they do it in our area. And basically what it is it was like a high school competition that you can you go to, and high school and middle school age kids come, and they have to come up with a creative way to walk across a swimming pool, walk on water, create shoes or whatever it is. So that was something that you would we were thinking about hosting at one point and doing that yearly so that it would continue every group of officers and members. So that was one thing. I guess another thing that we do that's consistent across every year is we have something we call inter-org exchange. And it's basically us teaming up with the other engineering orgs on campus, and we do brainstorming sessions, and it's kind of like ICE, like this, except with other organizations on campus. So we meet up with Rocket Project, we meet up with IEEE, we meet up with SWE, and we talk about all these different things that we do, that we can do to help our individual orgs, and then we help promote each other's projects. So that's something, if you're struggling, I think with events and stuff, that's a nice way that if you can get people, or if you can get to know other orgs in your engineering college, then that's a good way for you to piggyback off of them. But that's one thing that we do that every year, even when the officers change, it's still something that we are a part of, and we participate on that. So.
That was very helpful. Thank you.
Thank you for the question again, Jason. So we are coming up on the end of the hour, so I think we have time for maybe one question. So if you do have a question, please make sure to raise your hand or toss it in the chat. Like I said, we'll be able to get at least one more. And we have another from Jason. So, and his question is, have any of your chapters volunteered for elementary, middle, or high school? If so, what were the points of communication you had to go through? Does anyone want to start that off? And Ian, if you want to add Jason back again so that he can ask follow-up questions if need be.
I mean, I don't think my chapter specifically has done this, but I am part of another organization. If you were asking about how usually point of contact, my other club does do like STEM fairs and goes into other high schools and middle schools and elementary schools and kind of teaches classes. A lot of it comes through kind of grassroots. Who do you know in high schools? Like asking younger siblings, parents, kind of knowing that. We do have reoccurring events every year. Like we know we've been to several STEM nights that usually it's a similar person's usually organizing it every year. So that's usually a reoccurring one, but I would definitely look out for if you would like to volunteer at high schools, middle schools, elementary schools, look out for STEM nights because those are kind of a big thing that is really easy to piggyback off of. And you basically kind of come in with some sort of demonstration or some sort of talking point, and it's very easy to engage in. I think that's the easiest way to do that.
I guess kind of piggybacking off of you, Sean, we in the past, obviously this was before COVID and I'm not sure if they are doing this again, but we have partnered with SWE to do something that they call Girls Day Out. And it's basically where they invite middle school and high school girls to like the college and they host like workshops and like they have them build like remote controlled cars and like, you know, like cool things like lava lamps and stuff like that. And so you can always partner with like another org on campus that does outreach like that. On a separate note, we have done direct outreach in terms of like middle school help, like our chapter has in the past. And that was because one of our officers, his like a family member of his worked at our nearby middle school. And so she basically told the principal like, hey, can we get this group to like come in and like help our kids come up with science fair project ideas. So if you can, and we have done this reaching out to our elementary school in the area too. So if you email them and just ask like, hey, we want to help you out, can like with tutoring or something, is there anything that you would like us to help you with? You'd be surprised how many teachers will be like, yeah, I want you to like come tutor my kids after school, or like, I want you, like we're doing like this whole, like our school is doing this like STEM night, like Sean mentioned, like, can you please come help us out, set it up, whatever. And so that is also an option that's out there.
Yeah, we've had a history of STEM events for middle school, elementary school, high school students as well. We haven't had any since COVID because schools are just kind of hit and miss as it is right now. But so I'm just assumed the president role this past year, so I can't say with certainty what we've done. But I believe if I remember correctly, you can go through your own university many times, and then they usually have protocols in place in order to reach out to these different elementary, middle, high school students. So that's usually what we've done in the past. One thing I will say is definitely have a lot of lead time if you plan to have an event, because number one, you have to reach out to the people and that takes time. But number two, at least for our university, they require background checks for anyone who's going to have any type of interaction with younger students. So just make sure that you have enough time put in place so everything can get approved and you can actually successfully run your event.
Real quick, I want Jason to have the opportunity to ask follow-up questions, and I know we have another question in the chat, but as it's the end of the hour, I want to quickly give a few announcements. So number one, like I said, this is part one of ICE. Part two occurs next week, next Wednesday and Thursday. We'll have breakout sessions where you can meet in a small group with officers from other chapters and exchange ideas and brainstorm new ideas for your chapter. Highly, highly, highly recommend you check that out. Go to your agenda in Whova. And I think there are 6 sessions, so you can find the one that works best for you. The other thing, please rate this session. So if you go on to Whova in the agenda for this event, there's a button that says rate session. And if you can click on that and leave your feedback for how we did, how we can improve. Hopefully we don't have to go through Unvention again next year, but if we do, we would really like to hear your feedback. I think that's it. So I'll give it back over to Jason if you had a follow-up on that.
I do not, but I just wanted to thank all the speakers here for their input. It has given me a lot of ideas.
Thanks again for the question. So from Mena, we have the question, what has most surprised you with the new way that your chapters are run?
I think for me personally, every day seems like it's a little bit of a surprise. What's most surprised me is my officers' ability to continue to stay on their feet and think quickly and kind of react with the times. And what I've learned most maybe is that just to be flexible, because in this crazy environment, things aren't going to go your way, but it's kind of what you make of them. In a great lesson from Kavya, your job frequently as an officer or even as a member of Tau Beta Pi is putting out fires. And the way you do that matters, like how calmly you do it and how you can still have everything together with not having everything together, if that means. So I think I've been surprised with how well things have gone, even in the face of us not wanting to be online, us not wanting to not see our candidates. It's been really good to learn from this.
And I'll piggyback off. I think that's completely true. I think a lot of it has been like how crazy it is and adapting to whatever we have to do to make this work as best possible. I think what surprised me the most personally is kind of just how many people still want to join, even though they don't necessarily like. It's like my information sessions were all online. I have done nothing in person. There's not been a single Tau Beta Phi event that's been able to be in person due to all this. And yet we still have one of our largest initiate classes that I've seen in a long time in our records. And I think that's definitely something that's surprising me. Maybe it's something to do with online, something maybe not, but it's still cool to see how people still can, even though the world's all crazy. No, I don't get to see you in person, that we still get to have this connection through online.
I think what surprised me the most is that people still show up to things when there's no free food.
About anything from Kavya or Nick?
Just our budget has been very happy that we haven't had to pay for pizza. I can tell you that for sure.
I'll say free food still doesn't hurt. We happened to have an event over the weekend, and we had like some free sandwiches and stuff. We tried to get them in like individual boxes and everything. We'll say that was one of our fastest sign up sheets that ever happened. But besides that, I mean, yeah, I totally second everything everyone else said here. Membership for our chapter, again, has been surprisingly at one of its record highs for especially the fall semester. So we're extremely happy for that. And yeah, I'm very surprised how involved people are wanting to get despite the circumstances. So yeah, again, just be optimistic. Don't view this as a negative by any means. I mean, just view it as opportunities for growth, especially as we navigate the virtual environment. And the fact of the matter is that more and more virtual work is probably going to happen in the years to come. So the better we can make use of the resources in front of us here, I think the better we can prepare ourselves to work collaboratively in teams going forward. So definitely view it as an upside and view whatever kind of positives you can take away from it, whether it be for speakers or development as a professional. So that's my 2 cents.
I guess like all of you said amazing things. I totally agree with all of you. I guess in terms of what I can add, I was surprised because when COVID hit, and I was getting asked, and me and my office team were getting asked how we're doing things like online, what's happening and whatnot. I was taken aback by how resilient your members, your candidates, your officers, how resilient everyone can be, how supportive, how in tune they want to be with everything that's going on. And that just goes to show that you guys are doing well, like we're doing good as a chapter, or we're doing good as a community. And that's one of the best things to see. We definitely just like the amount of collaboration was incredible. We also, our district is actually fairly close, and that happened because last convention, we all got like really excited and got really close together. So that was one of the benefits of going. And since then, because of that, we were very in tune with one another when COVID like first became a thing. And so we would have like weekly, and this is credit goes to our district directors. I absolutely love all three of them. They are very helpful to us, and I cannot express how awesome they are. But they put together chapter calls where all of the presidents are on a call like late at night. We were talking through what each of us were doing, getting ideas, how we can move forward. So if possible for your chapter, I highly recommend trying to get in tune with districts, with your district members and like any other chapters near you, because you never know when that group can be super helpful in terms of a resource for how to move forward. So yeah. And yeah, like Neil said, Unvention is a great time to do that.
And no better time to start, actually. So with that, I think we'll go ahead and wrap up the panel. I want to give a huge thank you to all of our panelists for answering your questions, for giving their insight. I think they did a fantastic job. Please tell them thank you. And I also want to thank the attendees for those questions. They're really good. And I hope it gave you some ideas that you can take back to your chapter. So thank you very much, everyone. Have a great night and take care.